for this Sandbox episode, we're excited to talk to somebody we met this past year at Pop-Up Crop. She is a ball of fun, tons of energy, incredibly talented illustrator, chalk artist, muralist, speaker, and host of this year's crop. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Ashlee Arceneaux Jones to the show.
Yeah.
The Jones was good.
Yeah,
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey!
So, man, I can't wait for this conversation. We met you, like I said, this past year at Pop-Up Crop, and we were up in our little bird's nest at the top of that incredibly awesome venue in downtown Austin, right next to the
It was an
Capitol.
art museum, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't remember the actual name of the... Do you remember the name of it?
No.
The Contemporary?
Yeah.
The Contemporary.
That's right.
But man, it was such a cool venue, and when you came up, we didn't know what to expect, and you held our toes to the fire, went toe to toe, nose to nose on all of our banter and ridiculousness, and so I can't.
She
can't
one
wait for
upped
everyone
us.
to experience.
Like she is so. You're sneaky, Ashlee. You're sneaky.
Oh yeah.
It's hard to tell when you're joking or when you're telling the truth, and it's the best.
Or just lying. That's the one he didn't say, but it's hard to tell when you're telling the truth and lying.
It sounds so harsh when you say lies.
Yeah, that's why you
I'll
don't
say
say
I'll
that.
say joking.
Just being creative with
Yeah.
my words.
That's because Patrick was the one who had the hardest time
When you
with it.
invent
So,
facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we'll pull back. Let everybody who doesn't know who you are, who hasn't had a chance to get introduced to you, let them have a Wikipedia page about who you are, what you do, and how you got into that.
Okay. So my Wikipedia page would say that I am a chalk artist, illustrator, speaker. I think you covered all that. I live in New Orleans, Louisiana, with my husband and my almost 2-year-old little girl. I've been doing this work since 2010, so going on 8 years now. I've worked with a ton of different restaurants, businesses. I've worked for different events, just met and worked with all kinds of really cool people all over the city and actually all over the country for the last, almost 8 years now. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you say that you're a chalk artist, a chartist. That's what at least we like to make it more simplified. When you're a chalk, son of a gun. Why is that phrase hard for anyone else to say?
Chalk artist.
I think just you.
Yeah,
Cool.
chalk artist.
Thank you.
I think you're the
Chalk
only one.
artist.
In the past 8 years, have you ever messed up the phrase chalk artist? Doesn't sound like it.
I've probably messed it up many times.
See, I appreciate the bone you've thrown me there. As a chalk artist, tell us what that actually means. Like, are you on blackboards, like doing stuff? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, a lot of times I am. Because everything kind of started from just that basic, I go into a restaurant and they have a huge chalkboard and they just want maybe their specials written out, or they want their menu written, or they want just an image or whatever it may be. It definitely started with just a stick of chalk on the wall. But over time, I've kind of evolved in the different materials that I use, and the different surfaces that I draw on, paint on. So it's kind of deceiving that, my name is Small Chalk. I do all my work under the name Small Chalk. And that I call myself a chalk artist because at this point, I'm actually I do work more with ink and paint than I don't do anything with like sticks of chalk anymore. So the surfaces always kind of vary, and like what I do varies. I feel like I just kind of provide various creative services geared towards lettering and painting and drawing more than I actually am a chalk artist,
So is there a certain style of lettering that tends to accompany chalk artists? Like, is that phrase now, does that just as much pertain to the style of the imagery and the typography as it would of the medium at another time? Or
Perhaps. So I think when you think about chalk, and it depends on where you're thinking of, like in your mind, if you're thinking about going into a restaurant or any kind of food service setting and looking at a menu and it's written in chalk. So like in my mind, you would primarily be focused on the legibility of it. So
Right.
you'd be thinking like super clean lines, maybe some decorative headers, decorative accents, but like your primary thought is like, this has to be legible because that's the whole purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I've kind of based my entire, I guess, career on being able to make my work really clean and legible, but also leave a lot of room to be creative, and to just kind of marry the whole concept of like, this is art, but it's also like very practical and it's for a purpose. And so, it's kind of a challenge. Like, do you feel confined to like this legibility, straight letters, maybe just strictly printed, or like a very neat script, like marrying that
Sure.
concept with like, I want people to know it's mine. I want it to look good. I want it to be creative,
Yeah. So when I think of like a big menu board or something, layout is key for that, right? So
Right.
how does that work? Like, is that something that you have learned over time, or was layout like the thing that came pretty easy? How did that work for you?
So I began my career is like with zero formal training. If you would have asked me, like, because I graduated from college in 2005 and just with a degree in advertising, and just couldn't find a job. I come from a family of just like, they all punch a clock 9 to 5. Like, no one's an entrepreneur. No one's really creative. I mean, I just come from a family of like, secretaries, school teachers, like very like strict, or not strict, but like, just basic.
Normal.
Black
yeah.
and white job.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So I, got the degree that everybody wanted me to get, and I just could not find a job. So I worked in service industry for years and years, and just kind of resigned to like, I'm just going to be a waitress forever. And so I had no art training. I just always did it as a hobby. And I just kind of happened upon, oh, I like to draw. I'll do these chalkboards in this restaurant that I work at.
Mm-hmm.
To all of a sudden, I did that enough times at enough places where I worked that someone took notice and actually hired me. I knew nothing about that. So when you ask if like I started with any kind of background in layout or knowledge of layout, like zero. Like I cringe, like I won't look at my work from 2010 because I'm just like, oh my God, like that's horrible. I knew nothing about typography, nothing. Like I knew more about graffiti than I did about what is how do you form a letter? Those weren't like typography was not my influence when I first started. So, all this just to say, like, I teach that to myself. And I do think, like, a lot of it did come naturally. Like, I have an eye for space. Like, I've never really struggled with layout. I mean, obviously I had to learn it, but, like, it made sense.
Sure.
And even at my worst, I had that natural ability. But I definitely had to start from square one with everything.
So you made the comment that you've had to shift the medium a little bit as you've gone, and then I want to talk about your murals and things like that in a second. But is the shift to using more inks and paints and things like that as opposed to traditional chalk? Is that because the work that you've done, you've now 10 years into it, or 8 years into it, it has developed so much that people want to keep it around for a long time, and so there's this flattering element that's like, hey, we don't want this to be a temporary installation. We want this to be a permanent fixture to whatever the business is. Is that the main drive behind that?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, this has all been kind of it's such a niche job that I do, that I've had to try to figure out the best way to do things for myself, but B, also for my clients. And I've had to learn how to scale in my own way. And that really helped me set some rules for what I do, the way I do it, what materials I use. And so, long story short, the reason that my work is it's semi-permanent now and I use ink and paint is because I've had to grow from point A, where it was just like, yeah, I'll come draw on your board for a sandwich and I'll just come back next week because I don't have anything else to do, to like 8 years later, like, I can do this thing for you. It's going to cost you a decent amount of money, because I'm able to kind of pick and choose my jobs and my clients at this point.
Sure.
So it's going to be, I hate to say expensive, but like, it's going to be pricey. And so you're going to want it to last, right? An investment, you're going to want it to last. And so I work with my clients to create work that they either never really have to change for years to come, or they only need to see me maybe once or twice a year, at the most 3 or 4 times a year, just because it's like, I want to set you up for you to either have the very basic menu that you need, or I'm kind of at this point where I'm like, just hire me for like a mural or like decorative, like lettering pieces or images, like
not the week to week stuff.
Right. Not the list of like your sandwich specials or whatever.
Yeah.
So, so one thing that strikes me about a lot of people that do freelance or contract or basically that are self-managed is that it really kind of requires double skill, because you have to have mastery over your craft, whether it's design, development, whatever that is. But then you have to have mastery over managing a business on some level, managing yourself, the financial aspect of it, the legal aspect of that. I mean, there's a whole nother set of things that you have to deal with that extend far beyond the technical craft that you're doing. So what has that transition been like? Do you have someone that you primarily work with? Is this something that you do as a family? Is this something you manage by yourself? How did you move into not just, working for more than a sandwich, but how did you move to the place where you pay tax for the sandwich and legally, how did you get to the place where you're managing all of that, and how difficult is that transition?
It's really tough. I mean, again, zero business background. I've always just been kind of like, I guess I'll figure it out kind of person, and I also, in the beginning, was really scared and timid to ask people for the money that I deserve. And like, I feel like I just had to really fall on my face many times. I had to like work for literally like 25 cents an hour sometimes when it came down to it. I had to find the courage to ask for those, prices that I thought were too high, but like really like, no, that's fair, because there's no freaking like industry standard for this.
Sure.
Like now, like I scroll through Instagram and everybody and their grandma is a chalkboard artist. Like, but when I started, no one was a chalkboard artist.
Yeah.
Like, there was no way that you could like go and find like what's the standard pricing for hand lettering for a business. But now it's like I'm sure you could find that information. So I just had to do a lot of like I had a lot of hard lessons learned, and then I just had to kind of like I had to feel people out. Like now when I put in a bid, I kind of have an understanding of like what a client would be willing to pay. And like, I know how to do the like, bid high. And then if they say like, well, maybe, can we work with it? Then that's good. But if they're like, sure, then that's bad. If they're like, absolutely not,
Right.
I just had to learn all those things. And I'm not some kind of genius at it, but I feel like confident placing my own bids and things. I've kind of like messed around with the idea of using an agent, but I don't know. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's like the amount of time and trial and error involved with finding the right person that's going to like come in at this stage and like bid for me and know me and my clients all just like, they know me and they want me to talk to them on the phone. You know, I just like, I always think about how nice it would be for somebody to kind of do that work for me. But at this point, I'm like, I've been doing it all myself.
Sure.
Should I just keep going?
Are most of your clients like local and regional, or are you traveling at all for that?
I mean, I have traveled in the past. So one thing I didn't mention is I worked as the in-store chalk artist for Whole Foods Market for like 3 years.
Oh, cool.
And that was like an amazing experience for me because I learned how to do my job really fast. Like,
Sure, yeah.
I learned a lot of skill. I was able to, they paid for me to take classes. They paid for me to fly all around the region. And like, they actually paid me to instruct other chalk artists, like how to do the Whole Foods chalk. And like, I met a bunch of artists and, you know, I learned how to teach others. And I learned how to do the job really quickly because in that world, the turnover is so high. So you're like, strawberries, 39 cents. And you like work to make this beautiful strawberry and you do everything so perfect. And you like bring it out to the sales floor and you put it out and they're like, the strawberry sale just ended 10 minutes ago. Now it's bananas. And you're like, bananas. And so like, you know, there'd be days where it's like, I have like 25 chalkboards just for like the Wednesday sales. I got to hurry up and do them, you know,
Wow.
but they still have to look good. So I learned a lot about speed and, you know, the tone of what things should look like, color. I mean, I just learned so much, you know, and I kind of took that with me in the process, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that note of teaching and educating and those things, a community that you're very involved with, you've been involved with since the beginning, is Crop. It's and we've talked to Stay Gray, Ponyboy, Matt Dawson. We've had him on the show before. We've talked to him in the hot seat. And did we talk to him at Creative South too?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, we saw him there, but did we have a Creative South hot seat with him?
I think year one. I don't think year two.
Nope. Definitely year 2, not year 1.
Cool.
So so we've done 2 hot seats in an interview. Matt Dawson racking it up. So yeah, so we said before that you know, we were at Pop-Up Crop with you. That's where we met you there. But then Crop is the primary event for those that don't know. Crop BR, which happens in Baton Rouge.
Yep.
And
It's the
and that's
daddy event to the
daddy
babies.
event, to little child, Pop-Up Crop.
Yeah.
But you're involved with that too, and not only have you been going since the beginning, but this year you're actually emceeing the event, which is not that far away.
I'm hosting the whole damn thing.
Exciting.
Yeah, because
Welcome to
you
Crop.
bring the energy,
Yeah.
the fire. So talk about that community and how that community has benefited you, and just lay into the pitch for Crop. Tell people why they should be there.
Yeah.
So so this is going to be the 3rd year of Crop. So I guess it's like, 3.5 years ago. I don't know. 3.5 years ago, I'll say, Matt called me just like out of the blue. I was like, hey, I'm Matt. I'm putting on this conference. I know your work. I really like it. And like, how do you feel about speaking to a bunch of people about you and your work? And I was like, what? Like, I had never spoke to anybody. I was like, how do you even know me? Like,
How did you get this
who
number?
are you? How did you get this number? No, I was really surprised, and I was like, okay, sure, I'll come talk to people in Baton Rouge. And he wasn't allowed to tell me. I mean, he makes the rules, but he wasn't telling me anybody else that would be there. He just said, we like you. We want you to speak. So I was like, yeah, okay, what could I possibly be doing? He's like, it's a year from now. I was like, okay, that's like really far away. whatever, dude. I just kind of was like, this is going to be whatever. So we get closer and closer to crop, and I'm talking to him more and more. I'm like, oh, he's really nice. Like, all these people are really cool. Like, they announced the lineup. I'm like, what? Like, how am I, like, in the same, space as these amazing people? Like, what are you talking about? So then I start to get really, really nervous. And then I had a baby, and that was in February, and crop was in April. And I was like, when he asked me to do this, I was like, what could I possibly be doing that would be a conflict? And I'm like, now I just gave birth. I'm like bloated, disgusting. Like, I don't even know how to talk to people anymore because I've been like cooped up in my house for 6 weeks, Still was like,
you have to reacclimate
gross.
to society.
I did. It's like, I don't even know if I can speak English anymore. I just am like, like I just couldn't even deal with the concept of like getting on a stage, feeling and looking like I looked, and talking about work, which I hadn't done. I hadn't done work. I was on maternity leave. So like the anxiety was just like flooding through my body. And I remember showing up and like, just from the second I walked in and like met everybody in person after just like phone calls and seeing, like feeling the energy in the room, meeting the other speakers, like I just was like, this is going to be fun. This is going to be great. Like, there's a reason I'm here, And I got on stage, and it was like all a blur. I was really nervous. I just like kind of babbled. And then I said something about like, y'all, I have to be honest, like I'm really nervous to be up here. And like I didn't know how bad I was gonna feel this, like I didn't know how nervous I was gonna be. I was just really focused more on like not like a milk not coming out of my boobs, or like something I said about like lactating on stage. Like I said something and the whole audience just like started laughing.
I have that same worry every time I speak. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't remember what I said. I was like, I just don't want to lactate on stage, whatever. And everybody's like, ah. And I was like, okay, this is fine. And I just kind of like took a deep breath and finished what I had to say. I will always remember like all those feelings that I had and being on stage and how nervous I was, but how I started to relax right after everybody laughed. And even though it felt like a blur to me, everybody was like, that was great, your talk was great. Then I just went on to have a really nice time for the rest of the conference. I really only could stay the first day because, I had like a 2-month-old. And the feedback that I got from that conference and from my talk was incredible. And making that relationship with Matt and then meeting him in person and his wife and like Jason Craig, who is like one of my favorite people in the entire world. Like,
he's a good dude.
He has that effect on people.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know. I just love that dude. I think he's amazing. And like, he was so kind, and like all these people that I just like couldn't even believe I was in the same like lineup with them. And they were so nice to me and had such positive things to say. And I was like, if the people in this audience are feeling like a fraction of the excitement that I'm feeling, if they feel like this big hug of support just like surrounding you, just by being in that space with them, like it's just such a positive experience. And like, I don't know, I get really like emotional and anxious, and like I just have all these feelings inside, and I just sit in a room all day by myself drawing and like thinking about it. And like when I get into a room with other creatives and we're all like talking about that feeling together, and like you feel like somebody understands, like there's only so much that I can tell my husband and like my baby and my cat before they're like, shut up, like, and I just think like when you work for yourself and when you're a creative person, I just think you like need conferences like that to come together and meet other people and make connections and know that we're all just kind of doing the same thing. We're just like individually in our own little boxes and our own little places. And like,
but you're in it together.
Moments, and you're in it together. And those moments, that's just like the whole thing when you're at crop to me, And then on the flip side of that, it's just like an incredible opportunity to meet other artists and like be inspired by them and maybe some people you've never heard of before, and then you discover them, and I don't know. It's just a really wonderful experience, and I'm honored because that first year with that talk, I was like, all right, well, I did my thing, I'm done. And then Matt was like, no, come back for year 2, like teach a workshop. And I'm like, okay, and like then after year 2, he's like, well, come host, like, so we had this running joke where like, I'm just going to stick around crop every year, even if like my job is to just like sign people in at the door. I'm like, I just want to do something. I just have to be here, you know?
Sounds like it's escalating each time. So next year,
you're just going to plan it
over.
Yeah.
Next year, it's going to be the Ashlee Arceneaux Jones conference.
I love it. I'll go to it. That's fine.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm in. Okay, so we're going to switch to finals because we're going to talk a lot more at crop. So I'll take the first question in the finals. And you mentioned before we started that you don't really do much besides work and mom stuff. And so like, I think there is, we don't hear much of this side of the conversation for people that are freelancers that are parents. How has your business, because you've been in business for 8 years, but you only have a 2-year-old. So how did your business change after having a kid, and how does that work? Because, I mean, anybody with kids knows that your schedule changes, your life changes, all of that stuff is just different. How did that affect your business, and how have you transitioned?
Well, I just went from being someone who worked literally around the clock to someone who had designated times where it's like, I'm not available. And I was listening to, when y'all talked to Bob Ewing, I guess a couple weeks back, and and like, I don't know, I listened to dads who have kids and who are obviously very active in their kids' lives. And because I can see, like, following Bob, it's like he's always hanging out with his kids, and like that's his life. And so I don't doubt anything about like, well, he doesn't even hang out with them. But what I'm trying to say is like, I listen to dads and I'm like, I get it. Cause he was like, no, I make the time. I don't find the time. I make the time to do all the 5 bajillion things I do. And I was like, man, I need to listen to more moms who like are freelance artists, because like, for me, it's about energy. Like, it's really hard for me to wake up at 6 a.m. and like do the shuffle to get everybody out of the door and get to work, and then like put in a full 8-9 hour work day where like my brain is like completely focused on my work. And to come home, pick her up from school, play with her so that I'm like present and talking to her and hanging out with her, read her, bath and bed and books, and then jump on a computer and like start doing more, or like get down and like start drawing. Like I just like don't have it. I'm just exhausted at that point, and it's not even like physical, because it is physical, but it's more like mental. Like, but I was thinking about how many years like it was even more than that, because it was like I was nursing her, so it's like, I don't know, I just felt like so much of my energy and like my literal like body was going to her. And like, it's just like, I just think a mom's work, it just is so taxing, and it's fine. I wouldn't have it any other way, but like, I just found that I was like depleted at the end of a day.
Yeah, sure.
And like, not only was I like unable to do any more work, I just like didn't want to. Like, I need to rest so that I can wake up the next day and like put my 8 to 9 hours to the best use that I can.
Yeah. And
like, those are feelings and experiences that I never had until I had her. And so, and then it's like, we put her in school 5 days a week. But on the weekends, it's just baby time.
Yeah.
Just toddler time. Like,
There's
no work getting done. Like, maybe I'll send some emails while she's napping, but like, it is just her on the weekends. When she's sick, like we just all had the flu. Like when she's sick, she's out of school for a week. I don't go to work, and like, I don't have the resource. Like, we don't have like grandparents in town to drop them off. I
Gotcha.
don't, after tuition, like I can't justify spending for a babysitter for the day
Yeah,
on top
absolutely.
of,
Yep.
we just like don't have that. And so she comes first. And so I've like spent so many days where like I can't control the fact that I can't go to work today.
Right.
And like I said, I'm a really emotional person. And so I've just had days where I'm just like sitting there staring at her, and I love her, but I can't go to work because of her. And I'm just like bawling, crying, because I'm like, this is not a good enough excuse. Like, I need to get my work done. Like, my clients are counting on me. Like, they're opening their restaurant tomorrow. I have to make this happen. And like the guilt of like having to call a client and be like, I got to take care of my kid, and like not knowing if that's like gonna make them mad at me, or feeling like, it's just like a lot of emotion around like work was my baby for the 6 years.
Yep.
And now I have a like actual human baby that takes precedence to all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm still having to be accountable, and I still need to be professional, and I still need to like hold up my reputation, which is like, she does stuff all over town. She's not going to be late to like, oh God, I'm late again. Like that's been the hardest part, is like not being in control so many times in parenthood, like the loss of control, and like you like life has to come first sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
Yes.
I know I'm just like
No,
going
no,
on
that's
and
good.
on.
No, that's good.
And that's the thing nobody talks about.
Yeah.
I
So
know.
here's my final question, and it's kind of on that topic, maybe a lighter side of it potentially. What's a project with a client over the last 2 years, maybe, as you've had to become more disciplined, as you've had to, as you've gotten the flexibility and also the responsibility of being more choosy in the clients you take on? What's a project that you had to turn down but you knew would have been super fun?
A project that I had to turn down that would have been super fun. I don't turn a lot of super fun projects down.
So even if the time frame, even if the turnaround, all that stuff gets crazy, you're still, if it's fun, it's for you.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I think I just am not good at just like recalling stuff so quickly. Like probably tonight when I'm laying in bed, I'll be like, oh, that thing. But like, regardless of all this, that I'm just like pouring my heart out and rambling on way too much. Regardless of all the stuff that I just said, I mean, I have taken my little girl like in a friggin' wagon, driven her an hour and a half to Baton Rouge, and like put her in a wagon and like got up on a ladder and did my work.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I still like try to make stuff happen.
Yep.
And I still like, I don't know. I'll just have to like make it work somehow, because I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I would say no to, like the little one-off. Like I got a hilarious email the other day. Like I love like emails that are like super vague. It's like project request, sign, and then in the description it's like, I need a sign for my boyfriend, and then like that's the end of the email. Like, and so like I kind of like, I really hate to just like not respond to emails, but it's like you literally like put zero thought into that. Like I feel like you were just like drunk at the bar and like, oh, I want a sign for my boyfriend. Like I'm like, this doesn't really, warrant a response, but I'm not going to be a jerk, so I'm going to respond. I'm going to be like, hey, Carol, like I wasn't really sure what you wanted from that, email request. Can you like be more specific? And she's like, yes, I want a sign from my boyfriend that says everything's better with Brooks. I'm like, okay. And then it's like, there's like a little thing in the bottom. It's like, what's your budget?
This is an actual story. I feel like this is an actual story. Okay.
It is.
So Brooks is out there somewhere hearing this for the first time being like, what?
Well, I need to know the budget. You cut her off at the best part.
Sorry.
What's the budget?
It's the gift you'll never receive. At least not from me. Maybe somebody else will make it for you. But
what was the budget?
The budget was $35. And so it's like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. So trust me, there's plenty of stuff that I'm like, No, I'm not available right now. I used to do a ton of wedding stuff, like these big ornate signs at weddings or like seating charts, whatever. I don't do wedding stuff anymore.
It's funny because I think so many people that we talk to, and even Luke, who does photography. I've talked to photographers, I've talked to chalk artists, I've talked to people, and nobody does weddings. It's amazing that people even are able to get married anymore because
I know.
all of the artists.
It's the reason they're so expensive.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I try to keep it positive, but the thing is, like, after you've been married for so many years and you're like, why would you spend all that money on a wedding? You're just going to argue all the time and just like, just take out the trash or, not really, but like weddings are just stupid, I mean, they're not, but they're just like,
if we could have just had all of that money and just got married in the
this.
courthouse and just had all that money that we spent, we'd be out of debt.
If you do chalk artistry at a courthouse, or for the people getting married there, like the quick way, just do like a real quick.
Right. So my tagline would be like, you really saved on the wedding costs, so why not splurge on a really nice sign for your cheap wedding?
That's marketing.
You could just set up a shop out front of the courthouse. I'm pretty sure that's fine. You don't even need a permit for that. If you're just doing chalk.
Right.
$35.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding. You're not getting it, Brooks.
Yeah, sorry, Brooks.
I can't even pick up a piece of chalk for $35. That gets you nothing.
I don't roll out of bed for less than $50.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
So, okay, I'm going to jump in. Final question. Mine is very lighthearted. Mine is, I should have gone first because I feel like I'm just killing the mood. But iPad. Okay. Looking through your stuff, found a really great piece that is it's a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. It's now's the time to lift our national policy from the quicksand. Like it's a really long quote. But yeah, racial justice.
That famous quote about iPads,
human dignity.
From Martin Luther King.
You know the piece, that big
I
piece.
do.
So you did that piece on an iPad, correct? And you have a process video that shows it. So getting to my question now. You made the comment at the beginning that you were in food service. You did the signs because you enjoyed doing the signs. People liked them. You kept doing them. Over time, it grew. You did not consider yourself an artist.
Yeah.
You didn't set out early in your career to be an artist.
Yeah.
But now when I go look at a piece like this, it looks... obviously, your work looks incredibly professional, but over the course of this 8 years or 10 years or whatever you've been doing it, it's no doubt that you're an artist. So two pieces to that. One is... how has that transition felt for you? Like, have you felt that change? Is that something that you felt along the way, or is that something you've always been fighting of really like feeling like a true artist? And the other piece of that would be, I guess if you're talking to someone that maybe they want to go down a creative path and their family doesn't, and none of their friends do, like they're the first ones setting off on this journey. What's the step you take? Like, what's the baby step I can take today to orient myself that way?
Okay. So I'm gonna start from the beginning, from your series of questions.
Yes.
I love that you called it a series of questions. That
From
makes
your
me
series
so
of
happy.
final questions, you ask one question for each of you. You
Yes.
just asked one.
No, it feels like one.
So the journey, yes, of course, over 8 years, I've seen myself improve. That's the whole point, I guess, is like, I knew in the beginning, it's like, okay, I have like some natural talent, but I really need to refine this. And also like, I was not going to sit here, I wasn't going to go around town and call myself like a letterer or a chalk artist and not know anything about typography. So it's like, I learned all that stuff. Like, I took classes, I went back to college, I did all this kind of stuff. So like, a lot of that is training. And so like, yes, that's the improvement, and a ton of practice. A ton of practice. And again, in the first, before I had a lot of family obligations, just being up all night like any other person. Like,
Sure.
I stayed up all night for however many years, whatever. So putting in my time, for sure. And I like to that's all fine.
Sure.
I do look back at my old work as far as I'm willing to go before I'm like, oh, gross, vomit, that's terrible. Like, I think maybe like in 2014 or something is where I can start actually looking at old work. But I'm like, there's like something really nice in some of these older pieces that were less rigid, that were just more like free flowing, or like I didn't care that the serif isn't like at the proper angle. Like I just like put it wherever, It's really nice to kind of go back and see some of the playful side before I was like, because I think now, like, again, I spoke about how like I find myself struggling in this point in my life and my career where it's like, balancing being a mom with like being responsible but continuing to do the work and like feeling good about myself and about the work. But like I struggle sometimes because I feel like there's a lot of pressure with social media and Instagram, and like it's so crazy to me that piece, that Martin Luther King piece, is what stuck out to you, because for me, I like was really proud of that piece, and I posted it on Instagram, and I didn't get that many likes, and I was like, why doesn't anybody like this? Like, I don't understand. And like, I think it has something to do with like all the research that they do about like, well, your hand wasn't in it, or like it's like digital, it's not a photo, or I'm sure there's like a million reasons, but like I still get hung up on like, am I getting better, or am I just like stagnant, or whatever it is. Like I'm always second guessing those kind of things. I think that's like normal and natural, but like that piece in particular, I was like, why doesn't this have like a good amount of likes or whatever? But whatever the reason, like I still liked it. And I I don't know. I think it's been a struggle improving, but still staying true to my voice and myself. And that just kind of leads to the advice section of your question, like people that are just starting out or like want to have a career similar to mine. Like, what advice would I give? It's just to put in the time, do the work, learn as much as you can, but try to like find a voice that's yours and feel confident in it. And I think now it's so much easier, more than ever, to like make a career out of being a chalk artist, like make a career out of like, take a weird like vintage dune buggy and sell flowers out of it, on the side of the road.
This has to be a very specific thing. Like
I was going to say, this seems like something maybe that's like brewing in the back of your mind right now.
Right. That didn't just come from nowhere. That was a thing.
That was too specific.
I'm just saying, like, you can make a career out of anything right now at this particular. I feel strongly that you can just like do whatever you want to do. And like, even though tools like social media can make you want to like rip your hair out or like second guess yourself, they also give you like a ton of exposure that like makes it even easier. Like now, like I said in the beginning, like I scroll through Instagram and like everybody is a chalk artist. Like it's just so easy now because we're all just exposed to it. And like it is becoming easier to like place bids because you're like, no, like this is a thing. Like look at these other artists that have like made a living off of this, So I think it's like a good time for people to just like go out on a limb, but just like do your work and put in the time and keep your voice, and I think you'll be good.
I'm going to tack something onto that.
Okay.
I'm going to speak a little bit for you. But one thing that strikes me when we talk about setting out on a path that was not common, that there wasn't really any type of proof around you or any comparison you could make to know you're doing the right thing, not having the business skill and just deciding I'll figure it out, and taking on clients, charging more money even when you weren't sure that that people would be willing to pay or whatever, to stepping up and speaking, being willing to lead a workshop or MC. All of this, to me, it just speaks to your confidence the fact that you're willing to say, this is a thing I want, and even though it isn't what my family would, I mean, it isn't what any of them have a frame of reference for, so
Right.
maybe it doesn't feel supported, or even though, I don't have the background in it, or I don't have necessarily the business knowledge, I don't have whatever, I'm just going to be confident, and I'm just going to decide to make it happen.
Yeah.
That feels like that is a big part of this story, and it feels like that has absolutely served you well. So if I can say something to just the aim of one audience, to the people that are listening right now, if you decided you want to do something, be confident, decide to do it, and just do it. I mean, it's easy to dream and wait for stars to line up and wait for signs and wait for, well, once I finish these couple of things, and then just do it. Like, just decide to do it, decide to go after it.
I know, that is true. Like, I've always just kind of like been like, well, we're going to do it. It's just kind of like, you have one life and just like take advantage of it. I mean, my husband is like the same way. He, he's not the same way. He's the complete opposite, but he's like a little bit more risk averse. Like, I don't know. I'm always like, just do it. We're fine. Like, we're not going to lose a house. Just do whatever. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, I don't know. I guess I just never in my head was like, I can't, I just like,
Sure.
if I wanted, like you said, if I want to do something, I just do it. And
Decide to do
I
it.
might fail, I might fall on my face, but whatever. Figure it out.
So go ahead, tell people where can they find you? Where can they buy stuff from you? Where can they hire you for more than $35? Like, what are these channels?
So probably the best place to see my current work is on Instagram. And so I'm at smallchalk, SMALLCHALK. And you can find me. I don't do Twitter because just like I'm a visual person. Every time
they're the worst.
I've tried to do Twitter so many times, and I'm like, what's on my mind? And then I'll write something, and it'll be really silly, and I'll just like, I can't keep up with this. But so no Twitter. Facebook is weird. I don't like Facebook. And so you can go to my website, which is smallchalk.com. I have one item for sale.
Yes.
Nice.
It's a patch that I made, a nasty woman patch. For all the nasty ladies that like to wear patches. It's like $8. But no.
Luke's gonna get that and put it on his jacket.
Absolutely.
But no, I mean, obviously my stuff is more portfolio based. One of these days, I'll make some products that people can buy, but for now, I'm just service based.
Awesome.
So yeah.
People will be able to see your stuff all over Baton Rouge and New Orleans and just go there, and then that's where your stuff is.
Right. Well, you can't take pictures of it without my permission. Well, you can take pictures of it, but you can't do anything with those pictures besides keep them for your own reference.
She's talking to you, Luke. All right, so before we head out of here, would you do us a favor and help us pick our tokens for next week?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, well, that's it for our interview portion. Up next, we're going to draw some tokens. The tokens portion every week is when we get to find out exactly what our categories are for the next week. We pick our topics based on those categories. I have our 3 categories right here in my hands. Right there we go. I'm going to put them down face down on my mat. I'm going to shuffle them up. You can't see them. I can't see them. Give me a number between 1 and 3, and it'll be for Patrick.
1.
Art and design, Patrick.
Great.
You did it. Okay, and
better than toys and
1
games.
or 2, and you'll pick for me.
2.
TV and film. That means, Luke, you have toys and games.
Yay,
Congratulations, my
thanks.
friend. You did great. Hey, thank you so much, Ashlee, for joining us. You're a blast. Your story is intriguing. It's inspiring. The work that you do is incredible. And so I can't wait to hang out again at Crop. We'll be hearing more about that. If you're listening to this, you'll be hearing more about that and what we're going to be doing there in
Buy
the coming
tickets.
weeks.
Yeah.
Go ahead and buy
People do
tickets.
Come
that
hang out
now.
with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the 4 of us, we'll all be
Yeah.
there with Matt Dawson, who is just a swell lad. But it's going to be a blast. Thank you for coming on. We know, as we heard in the background, your daughter is missing you. Thank her for letting us borrow you for a few moments. But you're awesome. You can find us at mofonepodcast.com. where you can find show notes and links to all the stuff we just talked about. If you're watching this on YouTube, everything is right below us. Just click the links below. Go to the archive at our website, and you can see all sorts of other incredible artists that we've talked to over the years. If you want to support the show, rate and review it on all the different platforms, on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify. Follow, share, like, review, rate, all the different things.
Yes, do it.
You know how internet works. Help us internet better. Just get us out there, because sharing is caring. And if you want to support the show financially, you can go to patreon.com/MF1podcast, where you can throw a couple of dollars into the proverbial bucket. Get $5 gets you the blooper level, where you'll get some extra stuff each month, as well as a access to a special Slack channel. Join us on Slack and join the community. MF1podcast.com/Slack. We're on all the social media platforms as well. Just search MF1 Podcast. I think that's everything.
If you want to support the podcast geographically, drive to Montana, download the episode. That will satisfy the M of One Big Butte challenge, and that'll get something cool headed your direction.
That's
so
true.
We
Yeah,
have one person.
that.
We have one person that has actually said, if Canada thaws out, it'll be a couple months, and no one has done it. They are willing to make a 7-hour drive in order to do that. So Beans, just for the intention, shout out to you. But you basically have the buffer of until Canada thaws out to beat Beans to Montana.
And if you have no idea what that means,
if you have no context for this conversation,
go back an episode and listen.
Go back one episode. It's there.
It's fine. But for now, we're going to get out of this episode. I'm Andrew.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Luke.
I'm Ashlee.
Peace out.
There's a carbon monoxide leak.
Hold on to your butts.
Bananas and avocados.